Hello, Bob Riekfeld here, preaching and teaching minister of the Spring Hill Christian Church, and welcome to another lesson number 10 on survey of the New Testament. Today we're going to be talking about the book of Galatians, a Pauline epistle. Some general information on the book. The meaning, it was written to the churches of Galatia. There were a group of church in an area called Galatia. The author, a writing is worth as much as its author, Paul. Galatians 1:1 and Galatians 5:2, the only one of Paul's letters that was personally written. See Galatians 6:11. There is no breath of suspicion as to the authorship, integrity, or apostolic authority of the epistle to the Galatians that has reached us from ancient times. It was alluded to by Polycarp in the 2nd century. Irenaeus quotes it in 150 A.D. Origen quotes it in 200 A.D. The date of the letter is 54 A.D., shortly before he wrote Romans. During his third missionary journey between 53 and 58 A.D., chapter 111 through chapter 210 show it was at least 17 years after Paul's conversion, 35 A.D., when he was in Galatia the first time, Acts chapter 13 and 14. After the Jerusalem Council of 48 A.D., the events of Galatians 2 are the same as those in Acts chapter 15. He went from Macedonia, Corinth, or Greece in Acts 20, verse 1 through 3, which is evidently after his visit to Galatia in Acts 18:23. After 47 A.D., at the close of his first missionary journey, but before 58 and his imprisonment at Jerusalem, Caesarea, and Rome, because Paul was free to travel in Galatia. The purpose of Galatia can be found in the first 10 verses. Galatia was accepting a different gospel. People had come amongst the Galatians perverting, reversing the gospel. It was to defend the doctrine of justification by faith, not the works of the law, and to knock holes in the Judaizers who said you had to keep the law in order to be a Christian. The historical setting, during a period of time when the entire question of Christian liberty is at stake in Galatia. Spontaneous spiritual life versus legalism. Salvation by grace versus salvation by works. Activity of creative faith versus ceremonialism. Galatians has been called the Magna Carta of Christian liberty, the Christian's declaration of independence, so to speak, from the law. Justification by faith is explained in Romans, freedom in Christ, and defended in Galatians. It's the best place to study with the person who believes in justification by works. In other words, ability to earn salvation by deeds. For those who are oriented to freedom, Galatians explains real freedom. The recipients, the churches of Galatia. The South Galatia theory. Galatia was a geographic province of the Roman Empire, which varied in its boundaries, being bigger than the original area, and including Antioch of Pisidia, Iconium, Lystra, and Derbe, Acts chapter 13 and 14. For example, Acts 18:23 and 19:1, the upper country. A group of people descended from migrating Galatians. The key word or idea in Galatians is justification by faith, freedom from the law. Key verse would be Galatians 5:13. For you are called to freedom, brethren. Only do not turn your freedom into an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. In Christ, we are free to, we are free not to, and we are to be free from. If we're not free from, we are not free to. An overview of the contents. Chapter 1, there's only one gospel. Free to obey Christ and ignore all other quote-unquote saviors. Chapter 2, Paul opposes Peter, free to correct error with the word. Chapter 3, purpose of the law. It was custodian, free from the law. Chapter 4, Hagar and Sarah, free as a son. Chapter 5, walk by the Spirit, free to live by the Spirit, not the flesh. Chapter 6, what man sows, he reaps, free to grow. The key verses are chapter 1, verse 8, any who preach different gospel be accursed. 2:20, crucified with Christ. 3:27, as many were baptized have put on Christ. 3:24, law was our custodian. 5:6, all that avails is faith working through love. Chapter 5, verses 19 through 21, the roll call of the damned. Chapter 5, 22 and 23, the fruit of the Spirit. 6:2, bear one another's burdens. And 6:7, God's not mocked. Reap what you sow. We often sow and then pray for crop failure. The outline of Galatians is chapter 1, what is the source of freedom in Christ, the gospel. Chapter 2, who is eligible for freedom in Christ? All people. Chapter 3, from what are we set free? The law. Chapter 4, how do I know I'm free? God says so. Chapter 5 and 6, what should I do now that I'm free? Walk in the Spirit and not in the flesh. Plan to help and forgive. 6, we must remember that law was never intended to save. On the contrary, its purpose was to educate and discipline humanity for the coming of the perfect revelation, Jesus. Judaism as a method of salvation was a misrepresentation even of the Old Testament. Excuse me. A brief outline: grace is defended, grace is explained, and grace is applied. Short book, but a very powerful book, very telling book, and I would encourage you to read that and then go back and reread and study it. Hopefully this survey of this book, Galatians, has helped you a little bit and maybe motivated you or whetted your appetite to study the book of Galatians a little bit further and a little bit deeper. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and may God bless you.